Hello, it's Charlotte from Power the Parent here. I wanted to share with you today a video about my boundary cycle that I like to talk about. If you know any of my work, you know that boundaries are a conversation I adore having for so many different reasons. Not from a place of perfection, but certainly from one that I wish I'd have known earlier, basically, in my life and career. So I wanted to bring to life the boundary cycle just to break down perhaps some of the questions that you might have, or sometimes we can approach boundaries too simply and it can just be a case of, yeah, I'm great at saying no. And actually, I think it is a much richer conversation than that. So the first step in my boundary cycle is to define your boundaries. Now, what I mean by that is literally writing them down or voice noting them, however you want to record them, that you will spend time getting really clear on what they are. And that can be done in a few different ways. And sometimes you will just know them off the top of your head. Other times you might need to think about, okay, what's the definition of success for me, or what's important to me? And therefore, what boundaries do I need to put in place? So for example, for me, I want to have family time in an evening. My ideal is that is every day. But to be honest, if I'm more realistic and say, actually, 3 times a week, I would like a relatively undisturbed evening. So what does that mean in terms of boundaries? That means that I want to have logged off and switched my emails off before I go and pick the kids up from school. It means that I'm going to have limited screen time on my phone. It means that I'm not going to pick up calls and FaceTimes from friends and family on those evenings, because as lovely as it is to speak to those people, my time and uninterrupted time with us as a family is limited. And there'll be loads of other different examples. So another one for me is around kind of moving my body. So I have some boundaries that I will I'll block the time in my diary. I'll make sure that I can't overwrite it and stick to it and all those kinds of things. I could go on, as you can probably imagine, for years in terms of examples. You will have your own examples. The second thing then is to share them with somebody. So that might be a partner, a friend, family member, somebody at work. It could be a line manager. Absolutely anybody at all that you feel comfortable sharing your boundaries with. What you're doing here is setting up a natural accountability partner, and that can work in 2 ways. So one way is that you're telling them, so therefore you're holding yourself to account and you've got it out of your head or off that piece of paper or out of the voice note, and you are sharing that with somebody else, and you can kind of chat that through. The other way that it works is that they might be the person that holds you to account. So for example, if it is if you've got some workplace boundaries, they might be, if it's a line manager or a peer, for example, they can help you keep those in place. Or you might say to them, if you spot me saying yes to that when I really mean no, or putting in a meeting at this time when actually I really can't do that, will you just give me a bit of a nudge and help me while I'm establishing my boundaries? The third thing to do is then to use them. So say no to that meeting that flies in that you can't do at that time, or say no, not right now, to a project that actually you would like to be involved in, but it's not something you can commit to at the minute. I also feel really passionately that boundaries also include saying yes, and yes to the things that really energize you or you want to kind of have as part of your repertoire, because I do think that is important as well, to make sure that you've got that kind of rounded conversation going on. And then the fourth thing is to review them and readjust and reassess. So I think sometimes with boundaries, we need to be really careful that we don't cave and just be like, oh, it's not working, and therefore, and I'm not people pleasing anymore, so therefore I'm just going to start saying yes again. That's not what I mean. What I mean is, if something really genuinely isn't working, how might you need to change it? Because you might have the wrong boundary in place for you right now. Wrong boundary in place for you. So for example, a personal one for me was at the start of the pandemic in 2020, prior to that, had some boundaries around evening working. I wouldn't work in an evening. Once homeschool kicked in and I had, at the time, a 3 and a 6-year-old, or a 2 and a 6-year-old. 3 and a 6-year-old, the ages don't matter. The point was I had young children at home who needed me for a variety of different things. And it was proper intense homeschooling for my eldest. It was impossible to work the way that I was working beforehand. So yes, I could do pockets of stuff here and there, but I needed to work in an evening. So if I'd have stuck to that boundary and said no to working, I'd have ended up in a really awful place. Well, more awful than I did. So boundaries will change. They serve us for a certain amount of time and then they will need to shift. So that kind of whole review process is really important to make sure that you're tuning into, is this still working for me? Is it helping me with my relationships, my well-being, everything? And then adjust accordingly. And they might be short-term adjustments. They might be something more with more longevity. Only you will know what's right for you. I absolutely love talking about boundaries, so please do feel free to go and check out any of my content on Instagram or LinkedIn. You can find me at Power of the Parent on Instagram, and you can search for me, Charlotte Speak, on LinkedIn, and we can carry on this conversation if you wish. But yeah, lots more to come on boundaries at another point, I'm sure. But for now, thank you for watching.